Everyone. Welcome back to Project Pastels YouTube channel. Thank you for joining the Athlete Aligned segment of Project Pastels, where we give athletes a platform to share their experiences with racism and discuss how sports can be used as a vehicle to combat prejudice. I am so thrilled to announce Jayden Dill today, a high school student, activist, and an athlete who is involved with student council and has coached and been a part of many school teams. So I know you from school and I'm aware of the amazing things that you've done for the Black community, but would you mind giving the listeners some insight to your path and how you ended up here today?
Of course, of course. I just want to say good afternoon, Atara. I'm really excited. And thank you so much for having me here to really share my story. Yeah, Atara did a great job of really covering who I am in terms of my athletic experience. But yeah, I'm Jayden Dill. I'm a grade 12 student now, and I am a member of the Black Futures Lab. And what we do is we really uh, uh, we're dedicated to ending institutional racism by raising awareness and educating students on the issues that affect the Black community and the achievements of many Black Canadians, both local and global.
Yeah, I've seen stuff with the Black Futures Lab. I've attended several meetings, and the stuff that's like the topics that are being discussed are just amazing because these aren't the sort of topics that you cover in class, even in civics or like any politics or law class. So what you guys are doing is amazing. Um, Now leading into my next question, what motivated you to be part of this club?
Um, it was really the fact that there was an absence of Black history uh, within the history that was being discussed at Mount Carmel. Now, I'm a very big fan of history. I love history, and I love the history courses that were being taught at my high school. But the problem I felt is that there was nothing Black about it. You know, it felt like it was excluded from our learning experience. And that's kind of a problem considering that Black history is a vital part of Canadian history. And it's a vital part that a lot of people don't know about because they're not educated about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like with the history we learn in grade 10, it's more European based, like with World War One, World War Two. And we do learn stuff about Indigenous history, but again, even with that, it's not enough, right? And I feel like with Black history as well, it's even more neglected, even so.
Exactly, exactly. It's very Euro-centric. And although we're making strides to include Indigenous history into our education curriculum, we're still not quite there yet. But it's one day at a time. We're making good progress.
For sure. So obviously you're an activist by what you just said just now. So I know that you have petitioned to start a Black history course at our school. Maybe you can give the listeners some insight into how that happened and what encouraged you to start this.
Yeah, so we you know a lot of people like to complain about the issues that they feel like are happening, but don't do anything about it. And that's just not okay for me. That's not just who I am. So myself, a couple a lot of students and even teachers as well, and members of the Black Futures Lab, banded together to say, hey, you know what, we're gonna get a Black history course into our school curriculum one way or another. So through a lot of emails, a lot of talking with the guidance department and the principals and the administrations and trustees and superintendents and so on, we were able to put something together as a starting base for a Black History course that will launch off in 2022. So we are very excited about that. Really, putting actions to our words.
Yeah, for sure. And I was reading a bit on the process and how you got this started. And I read that you had to write a letter to the principal. So these sort of things, especially installing a new course, takes so much time and persistence. And it just takes a team of people. It's really not just one person. It takes a team of people because it is such a difficult thing to do. So we're really happy. I'm sure the student body is super happy about this installment, and we really can't wait to see how this takes off. You
Yeah.
did address, yeah, for sure. And you did address saying how important something like this is. So how will this course impact the Black community as well as our non-racialized allies?
So I think we have to look back at what the priority of us starting the Black History course. It was one, to bring Black history into the light, to show that it is an important part in Canadian history. But the second aspect of it is making an attempt to end institutional racism. Now, it doesn't help us as a whole nation if only Black people know about Black history. Everyone needs to be educated on its value to Canadian history. We have to understand where it fits and how this is where it is now because of this, as an example. So although, the Black community although it is important for us to know about our history, having our allies know about it as well is just as important as Black people knowing about the history in the first place. So it really is a collective effort.
Yes, and we at Project Pastels, we see it the exact same way. We're like, there is no one group to end this issue, right? Everybody's part of the puzzle. So therefore, everybody must participate and everybody must work together to end institutionalized racism, discrimination, and all the isms, really. And I know we were talking about it before, but what are your aspirations for this club? Like, where do you see it? I know you're kind of like, your thinking is kind of like take it one day at a time, but you at least have to have some sort of goal for the future and where you see this club.
Oh yeah, we have. Well, we're pretty big dreamers, and then starting the Black History course was just the first step. We want to really get involved with the community. That's one thing we're very big on as well. Is community impact. How can we touch base with the community to really get them to raise awareness as well as on the issues that they face. So part of it is our first phase of the club is making sure everyone in the club is educated. That's why so far we've just been talking about a lot of the issues that affect the Black community in general and the history of them, and slavery and the Atlantic slave trade and ancient African civilization, all of that. It's really about educating ourselves first. The next phase would be looking at all the issues we've just discussed. What are some solutions, both big and small, because the small ones are just as important? What are some of the solutions we can come up with to create the change that we want to see, to create the change to solve the issues that we just talked about? So in the future and around in our second phase, it's difficult during a pandemic. You can't be out interacting with people as much as we would want to. So it's going to take some creativity, but definitely some more awareness, posters, maybe some advertisements, videos, some different sessions, some more campaigns. It's all up in the air, but there will be something, and we're very excited for it as well. So it's definitely an outreach phase coming next from the OLMC Black Futures Lab.
For sure. It's so tough. Like, we started Project Pastels in a pandemic, and you guys started this in a pandemic as well. And it's all about, you really have to adjust your mindset, because you can't go out and you can't talk to people. Hopefully we'll be able to do that soon, but really, like, it's all about educational content and awareness and making sure as many people know about your topic. So yes, I definitely agree. So in my intro, I said that you were a high school student, an activist, and an athlete. You touched base on your activist side of your life, but would you mind touching base on your athletic career? Because I know you played sports at school.
Yeah, so I was, let me see, in grade 9, I joined the volleyball team. I played a little bit of volleyball in other areas of my middle school career, more beach volleyball. Yeah, in grade 9, I joined the volleyball team. It was a really amazing experience. And I also got to coach the junior girls volleyball team, assistant coach, from grade 9, 10, and 11. So that was really an interesting experience for me. I've had some coaching experience in the past, but that was a really good experience for me, coaching alongside other coaches who've had a lot of much more coaching experience than myself. And then I also played soccer, because that is my main sport. I'm a soccer player. I'm a goalkeeper. I joined the senior boys soccer team in grade 9. And then in grade 10, we went on to win our first ROPSA.
I know, it's crazy, because I think what's so cool about like sports and leadership is like you can take so many important lessons from sport and even coaching and just apply it into leadership and activism. And that's where I found my connection with both, because I play volleyball and I use many of the skills I learned there to help me with Project Pastels and everything like that. So I'm sure you know about the connection between both of them. And I think it's such a valuable thing to have, especially when you're pursuing an avenue like this.
Exactly, because it's leadership. That's what it is. It's leadership, and that I the more I look back on it now, coaching and the experience I took and I got from coaching really allowed me to and gave me the confidence and understanding, to lead the Black History course and our project and getting that finalized. So it was a lot of the skills I took from that was very vital in my experience and my our mission and our progress.
Yes, for sure. I 100% agree. And as a BIPOC, as a Black athlete who played soccer and volleyball, I'm sure you are aware of the numerous barriers that are present amongst all BIPOC athletes. So leading into my next question, what barriers do you believe are preventing BIPOCs from continuing to play sports? Is it systemic, economic, or environment-based?
It has a little bit of everything. This is something that I've been doing research on lately as it turns to a soccer in Europe. But I want to swing it over to basketball for a second. One thing we have to notice is that sports usually is a reflection of its society, right? So if the society has racism or systemic racism in it, then there's a good chance that sport as a whole organization and as a business will have racism in it. If you look at basketball, most players are Black. For the overwhelming majority of NBA athletes, most of them are Black. But the owners, the managers, the NBA officials, the people in the high places are usually, white. So Black individuals might be the one who play and get the attention, but the control and the power is usually done by white people. All right, in a lesser and less complicated term, yeah, by white people. So that in a way reflects our society. We have a lot of Black people and a lot of very cool and sometimes influential, not really, but in terms of power and control, it's run by mostly white people, and you can start to see that that systemic barrier right there. So although sport is a good ground for changing things, it has its issues as well. So I feel like that's a huge issue we see in sports, is that yes, there's a lot of Black athletes playing the sport, but how many of them actually are in control and running the business? Because sports, as much as we love it, it is a business as well.
That's true. And with like touching base on basketball, like there are Black people playing basketball, but at the higher levels, it's mainly in a sense run by white people. And I think there are things that are being done to change this. Like I've seen many like BIPOC coaching mentorships, and I think when you instill those sort of programs, those will definitely help, I think, in the long run. But obviously more work does need to be done. And yeah, that is what I would agree to. Leading into my next question, have you faced any racism? If so, what did you do, and how did that affect you?
Now, as an athlete or just in general?
In general, athlete, however you want to answer this.
Yeah, so I've had my my series of microaggressions. I think my first introduction to racism was probably the one that probably hit me the most, really, because it's just your first impact. I think I was about maybe grade 4 or grade 5, where I used to walk home with this kid, and we used to love walking home together. We were good friends, right? And then one day he said, he couldn't walk home with us anymore. And then it was like, well, why not? Well, because my mom, because my mom says you're Black, and you might be up to no good, in trouble. And as a grade 4 and grade 5, you're kind of like, huh? And then you start to understand and get that perception. And I think that's when my parents really had that talk with me, that we've taught you the history, but now you know that it still exists today, Jayden. And it's kind of a weird conversation to have with a 9-year-old, but it's real, and it sucks that you have to have that conversation. But even that experience set me on the path to get me where I am here today.
Yeah, and it's crazy how you're 9 years old and you have to experience something like that. Like I was doing research, and children can identify like racial bias and can have racially biased views as early as 6 months and 6 years. That's insane, right? So,
That's insane. Wow.
and they can distinguish, white, black, brown at such an early age. So I think it's really important that parents do sit down with their kids and they do talk about it, because as your parents said, right, they explain to you the history, but it's still here today, even after all these efforts that are being made. And I do think that, like I said before, everybody's part of the puzzle. So regardless of your color, you're all part of the solution. And I think we all need to work together to achieve that. And I think like sports is such a great way to do so, because you can get people of different races and ethnicities playing together in order to achieve a common goal. So that's where I stand on that too.
I agree
And
with that.
somebody called, I remember in terms of like microaggressions, somebody called me an Oreo when I was like in middle school. And like, I didn't even know what that meant. I thought, somebody calling you an Oreo is just like, oh, like Oreos are great treats or whatever, and they taste good. So they're like, oh, like I thought it was along the lines of that. But later I'm like, oh, that doesn't mean that.
Wow. Middle school can be
It's more of a
ruthless.
brown
Wow.
Oreo to be specific, but yeah.
Still, wow, that's disappointing. That's another conversation when if you want to talk about the issues, within lower school grades and systemic issues that we see now. It's a lot, but we're still working towards that common goal.
Yes. So I just talked about sports. So leading into my next question, do you think that sport serves as a medium to help combat racism?
Oh, absolutely. See, as much as I talked about sports being a business, and that's what it's become, at its core, it's very special because it has the ability to unite people, regardless of their identity or their beliefs or their skin color or their social economic views, their where they live, where they're from, how they talk, how they speak. It has that ability to bring everyone together. Me and a white person beside me could have totally different views, be on totally different sides of the political spectrum, but we will support the same team because we just, we love the team, right? That's something that a politician can't do. They can't make that connection as people can connect with an athlete. When you're cheering on your hometown team, when you're cheering on, your favorite athlete, no politician has that ability to connect two completely opposite people the way an athlete or a sports team can. So yeah, it has that ability to combat racism on a huge level. It's just when we start turning it into a business is when we start to lose its special ability.
And its fundamental core, I know. And
Yeah.
It was really cool because I do a lot of research on this with Project Pastels, and I saw that lots of countries have used sports as a medium to, I guess, blend immigrants into society. And it's worked really, really well. So it's definitely a testament to how we see sports as it's at its fundamental core. It's a unification tool, and that's what these countries are using, and they're definitely seeing the results of it.
Yeah, it's very important. You know how we say everyone has to play a role? Well, sports in itself has a very vital and important role, to ending institutional racism and racism at whole for our world today.
Yes. And we've had an insightful conversation just now. So leading into my next question, what advice would you give to Black youth and younger adolescents who are trying to find their voice in activism?
Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Keep putting yourself out there, even if you don't generate too much momentum in the beginning, the groundwork is so important. You know, even if it's one person, you've changed your whole campaign. You have already contributed in a major way, right? So don't be afraid to put yourself out there, even if it doesn't end up well in the beginning. Just keep pushing for what is right. My second piece of advice would be, don't try and tackle the whole world on your own. If you can bond together, a group of you, as much as you can, just have that conversation. Even if they reject you at first, or you get rejected 30 and you only end up with 3 people, that's fine. Form that team to help you get what you need, get what you want done. That's major. It's really banding with people, because you're stronger in numbers than you're stronger on your own. You know, it's that saying that individually we're very unique, but together we're a masterpiece, and that's what it is. And that would be my 2 very strong pieces of advice that I would give to any young Black activist starting out like myself.
Yeah, it's like you with a team against the world. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
team again. Sports always finds its way into your everyday life. And I often believe in the ripple effect, meaning that if you change one person's life, even in the slightest bit, it'll just carry on and carry on and carry on. And over a certain period of time, you would have changed X amount of lives. So I'm a firm believer in that. And it seems like you are as well. Kind of taking a look at other things, what steps can our non-racialized allies take to promote a more inclusive atmosphere with their racialized counterparts?
Ooh, that is a important question. I'm going to use a bit of a different scenario here, a sports scenario. I've been doing a lot of research on soccer in Europe, but they call it football over there. And they are starting to experience a very increased height of racism from football fans towards players, more specifically Black players. And because they're not in person, they're starting to see the abuse through Twitter and through social media. And it's caused a lot of players to experience mental health problems, but for some individuals to stand up and stand out for it. The thing is that as a non-racialized ally and athlete, you can either stand by and be a part of the problem and watch what's happening and say nothing or don't stick up for your teammate, or you can stand up for your teammate and help him fight a battle and, you know, speak out against something that's wrong. You know, hit Twitter and defend them with all your heart, not just because they're your teammate, but because it's wrong. So even if your teammate is the one who's verbally abusing another athlete, or if it's your fans that are verbally abusing the opponent, you need to stand up for your opponent because it's the right thing to do. So as a non-racialized ally in terms of sport, when you're on that court, even with your opponent, you're playing the same sport, and you even need to have their back when it comes to racial equality and racial equity.
Yes, I think it's all about doing the right thing, regardless of what color they are, where they're from, what sport they play. They're a human being just like you. And I think oftentimes when we see people making derogatory comments and being rude or bullying somebody, we often look at the outside, meaning like their skin color, their ethnicity, how they're like, but you have to understand, like, they're a human too, and they have feelings, and you just have to do something. And I think many
Yeah.
people, when they are trying to figure out what to do, when the answer is really simple, it's just look at it from like a blank canvas sort of eye. Don't look at it from the perspective of their skin color and where they're from. Just look at it as if, you know, they are a true human being, which they are. So yes. So that is it for all of our questions today. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and chat. We had such an insightful conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will benefit from it greatly. And we wish you all the best of luck with the Black Futures Lab. And I know it's received recognition from the community and television networks, and I'm sure it's going to do amazing things as time moves forward. And your message is going to resonate with so many young individuals. So we at Project Pastels wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors, and you have our support all the way.
Thank you so much, Atara.